Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Fulfilled Musicpreneur podcast. Today I have with me Andrew Cloninger. He is one that I read his story and I just thought he was someone that I could bring on just to have a conversation around what he's gone through. Um, so let's just dive in. Let's dive in, okay?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome. Thank you.
So, Andrew, do you want to just introduce yourself, a little bit
Sure.
about
Yeah.
your background and how you started out in music?
Oh, yeah. So I started really young. I started in the church. It's kind of a funny story. We always kind of my mom always kind of says it is. I started as my grandmother's page turner in in church. So she would like kind of kick me in the leg, and so I would have to turn the page as she was going through the hymn or whatever. So that's kind of how I started. But I had piano lessons when I was younger, and then I gravitated toward guitar like in 7th and 8th grade, and so I didn't have one, so I just took a few lessons in school or whatever. They had a class. So I learned, like Twist and Shout and stuff like that, so some of the basic songs and stuff like that. And so then I started playing in earnest um when I turned 16, because that's when I got a guitar. And I also did I was in the school concert band, so I did auxiliary percussion and that kind of stuff. And I knew a little bit of bass. I played a little bass too. And so, I had a little bit of a, hodgepodge kind of musical background. And so I could do a few different things. Plus I was a sound man.
Oh,
So those were things that I started running sound in the church when I was 12. And so those were skills that I was honing in at that time. And my grandfather was electrician, so I learned how to solder and that kind of thing too, which is very helpful when your microphone cables break down and that kind of thing. So those were other skills that I picked up along the way as well. And then I learned like 3 chords and I joined my first band. And my main skills though was lyric writing. And at the time, because I wasn't a very good guitar player at the time, and so my main skills were writing lyrics, getting shows, setting up sound systems, and being a team player, as well as like doing the auxiliary percussion and whatever. I was kind of like the whatever anybody needed. That was the kind of thing that I was able to do. um,
mm,
and as I was, and I could sing as well. So those were things that I could do at the time. And so yeah, and then I just started I played in we started getting gigs at the local ice cream store, and you know cold calling everybody, and hey, can I play? That was basically what we did at the time. This is quite a few years ago. But
mm,
that was my foray into playing music. Was you know uh what do you need? I will help you. And that was kind of
nice,
how I
nice.
started.
So, did you have another degree that you studied in college, or was it just really
No,
around music?
no. So it's interesting because I did study sound production in college.
Hmm.
But as far as music goes, no, I haven't studied anything. I haven't even taken a guitar lesson. Which is
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, some people go that way, some people don't, but the thing that I had that maybe some other people didn't have is I had high caliber quality people that I played with. I was very fortunate to play with some guys that that were they went to conservatories, they took lessons, so I was able to learn almost, it's almost like a tuition free kind of situation, but I had to be able to take constructive criticism. That was the thing though, is I got pushed by my peers. And so, I was more of a training on the job kind of situation, as opposed to, you know, uh, you know, hours and
Mm,
hours with a teacher. I was more like, you need to learn this or you get kicked out of the band kind of situation. Which is a little bit more. I mean, I wouldn't say it's more high intensity, but it's definitely you definitely you need to know your stuff and you need to work hard
mm,
when you're there, because you're practicing with your guys, 2 or 3 hours at a time, and you need to be able to do the work at home, but as well as bring it to practice and
yeah,
bring
absolutely.
it. So
So
that was interesting.
yeah, yeah. Did you have just personal life? Are you
Yeah.
married? Do you have a
Yeah,
partner?
yeah, I'm married. I have a son, he's 11,
Oh,
and yeah, he's starting to play music now too, which is pretty cool. Um,
nice.
but he's doing it the right way. He's got, he's a sax player, so he's real I'm real proud of him. He's doing a really good job. So,
That's nice.
that's kind of a cool thing. But yeah, my wife is a musician as well, and an artist, and so yeah, and her day job though is she's a elementary teacher. So
Does she
that's
like play like a violin or something like that?
Oh no, she's a piano player. She plays piano and she sings and stuff like that. She plays in church quite a bit. So
Great, great, great.
I'm in her band. When we're in church, I'm in her band. That's how that works. So
All right. So just setting up the background story. So essentially, music wasn't only your passion, but was also your main source of income.
um yes and no. I mean, certain times in my life it was, and then sometimes it wasn't. Like, I've always been able to do the day job thing
Okay.
and also do music, because there was times when I was doing pretty well at both. But then there was also times when the money wasn't coming in. You definitely need to have income, especially if you have responsibilities,
Mm,
like we own our own house, and so we have to pay the mortgage, and all the things that the responsible things that you have to do to make life work.
mm,
um so yeah, there was times when, yeah, I would rely on it for income, but then there was definitely times when you know uh eh, the money wasn't coming in, you know
okay.
and
Okay.
so
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just what w- was it still around music production? What sort of jobs?
sometimes yes, but also I did a lot of like warehouse work and
Okay.
stuff. So I would do as many sound gigs as I could get. If I had a band or whatever, I would do that stuff. But you still have a lot of hours in the day to make money, and
Mhm.
so I would definitely do like warehouse work, light industrial, because it pays well and you don't have to have a lot of training. And so they teach you on the job, and that's kind of like an MO for me, is learning hands on. And
Mm,
so that was always something that I was always good at. So it was an easy way to make an income, have
mm.
an income, and as well as still be able to do the thing that I'm very passionate about. So that's
Okay.
something that's important to me.
So let me talk a little bit about why I wanted to interview Andrew on this podcast. So I came across his story and it just um, stuck with me and struck a chord with me because I have recently um, met someone who was a guitar player, actually played multiple instruments,
Yeah.
and then had a stroke
Oh yeah. Yep.
and obviously lost power in the arm
Yeah.
that he was
For
using.
sure.
And the cry of his heart was, Lord, you can take anything from me, but not my music, not
Mhm.
my music. And it was a journey. It was a
Yeah.
journey of perseverance and uh, gathering family and community around him and constant prayer and encouragement to
Mhm.
get back to playing. And when I met with him, he was playing in a band. It was a
That's
conference
awesome.
I was at last week, and just hearing that story. And the reason why we started to talk about it was because there was someone in my church
Mhm.
um, who was in the band before I joined,
Okay.
and right after rehearsals, he'd had a stroke.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
he was a drummer, and I think he played other instruments as well. But just
Wow.
he's still on that journey. He's still on that journey of
Yeah.
having to learn to walk again. But I'm sure that at the core of his heart desire will be, I want to get back to music again someday.
Yes.
So meeting someone like you who's gone through something like that, I just thought it would be an interesting conversation to have for people who may be going through something that seems impossible, and they don't think they'll ever see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And we talk about maybe different things that you did, and how you go through all of that. So can you first of all talk us through what happened, how you got
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, so, I had been playing for, I mean, well over 15 years, and, so I was pretty well established and, as a songwriter and in my area, I was a touring, I toured regionally, and, I'd go up to New York City and play there, and, that kind of thing.
Mm,
I live in upstate New York. And so, uh, my identity was wrapped around music. People knew me as a musician, that type of thing. And so, what happened is I was on vacation with my family. We were up at my uncle's camp, and we were chopping wood, just chopping wood. And, you know, especially when you're doing like light industrial work and you're doing that kind of thing, and you're lifting up sound systems, you're setting things up, all that you get aches and pains, and it's not fun all the time. And so, over the years, I've had some, like, I thought they were shoulder problems, but what I
mm,
didn't know is that slowly my neck was giving way.
mm.
So I had no idea, I just thought, "Oh, I'm sore," And so when I was chopping wood, it finally gave way. And so I had a bulging disc in the C6, C7 area of my neck. And, immediately it hurt, but I kind of worked through it. I thought, "Oh, I'm just sore, blah blah blah." But then it got really bad, and I lost feeling in my left arm, which is, I'm a right-handed guitar player, so that's the hand that you use to make chords with your instrument, and bass, and all the different ones. Your left hand is the one that you use if you're right-handed. And so, it went numb. The the pinky finger and the ring finger went completely numb. I couldn't feel it. And so I couldn't play guitar anymore. And it was really scary. It was, because especially when your identity is wrapped in that, your ego is wrapped in that. And the biggest thing that I needed to do right away, and obviously there was a lot of medical stuff that went on. I had MRIs, I had PT, OT. There was a lot of acupuncture. I had a lot of medical care, to get me, back, to where I needed to be. But during that time, though, I couldn't make music with my left hand.
Wow.
And um and that was the biggest question, and that was the thing that I struggled the most with, was, who are you?
Mm.
Who are you when the thing that you love the most is taken away from you? You know, what, it was like my Job moment, you
Mm.
know, who are you? What is your relationship with your family? What is your relationship with God? What is your identity? What is it really? Because those, I think as a Western, American person, there's a philosophy of you are what you do, and I in those moments I couldn't do the thing that I was really good at, and it was really a soul searching moment because it was like, okay, I can't make music this way, but luckily I have a awesome wife, and she I would dictate to her. I would say, hey, can you put these chords together for me? Like, let's try it. Let's try this chord progression. But and so I would dictate it to her, and she would play it on the piano. Okay, well, maybe that chord doesn't quite work. Let's try this other one. And then I would, and luckily I was right-handed, so I could still write, and so I would write lyrics and things like that with my, I could still write those out, you know, and so I ended up, and then I found this app on my phone that had samples, and so I made a sample record, you know,
Wow.
samples together, and so I made a whole, it was like 5 songs or something like that, but it really helped put the, because then I could hear it and I could put it together, but I didn't have to like physically, tap it out or, that kind of thing. And so it was a new way of learning how to make music that I hadn't really delved into.
Amazing.
A lot of people that do it, but it wasn't something that I personally had a lot of experience with. And so I just kind of, and I had all the time in the world because I was injured. So I didn't really, I was like, well, let's learn something new, let's try something different, and to this day I still incorporate some of that stuff but I wouldn't have known how to do it unless
Yeah,
unless I had that experience.
it's
And
interesting. So essentially, this is amazing. So I think the temptation for many people, first of all, when faced with something like this, is, "Oh, poor me, why me?"
yeah,
And then that's,
yeah.
the
Well, I
four
definitely
phases
had
of grief. But many people
definitely had
say
those moments.
people, some people may stay there longer than they should. But I think what's interesting here is you're actually seeing a blessing in what happened. The fact that you were able to learn new ways of doing things,
Yes.
and the fact that you were still able to engage, because some
Yeah.
people struggle with, if they can't do it the way they used to do it, they're not going to do it at all. But you were like, I'm just going to find a new way of doing this and enjoying music. I'm going to
Yeah.
see, I'm going to learn this new app and try to get someone else to play for. That is just amazing. First of all, that
Yeah.
is, I think that's
Well,
just amazing.
I think it goes to my character as a person, in the sense that I've been told my whole life that I can't do this and I can't do that. And I've always been one of those people that says, "Yes, I can." That is something that you can't make music at being a musician. You can't enjoy it to the professional level. You don't live in Nashville, you don't live in LA, you don't live in New York. You can't do it, and I choose not to believe that.
Mm.
I That's a choice. Those are choices that we all have. And the thing is that, oh, you're a Christian, so you can't play music out in the world. Well, that's totally wrong too. And it's really funny because most of my life I've played outside of the church. Um, I you know, I have a pretty limited church music career. I don't really do it a lot. And so, because the type of music that I play is instrumental. And so, I mean, I've played, I've singer-songwriter and that kind of stuff too as well, but and that was mainly what I did in the past, but now, because of some certain limitations with some of the you know, some of my physical limitations now, it's a little bit harder to sing, and because I have Bell's palsy as well as
Mhm.
that was, part of the whole situation as well. But, you know, okay, so that's happening too. Okay, my mouth doesn't work the way it used to, or I can't form the same notes, and
Mhm.
okay, that's fine. All right, let's try a different avenue. Let's do things differently. Because if we keep hitting our head against the same thing, trying to get a different result, it's not going to work. There's some insanity with that. You know what I mean? So I think the thing that we need to be looking for as musicians, as Christians, is what can we do different? Well, like, I'm a big fan of the Beatles. I grew up listening to the Beatles, and if people at that time were telling those guys, "Oh, you can't do this and you can't do that," that music would have never gotten made. And it's like, okay, how do we change music? Well, the only thing is hybrid. Like, one of the things that I'm working on right now, my band Ren Cove it's an instrumental band, but we play improvisational music.
Uh,
And so the thing that we're doing right now is working on our next record. And so, um we use prompts to get us to the right spot. So we're using a drum machine. It's like one of those little drum, old school drum machines that you get out of like an organ. You play along with the little beat, and but there's ways that you can manipulate those things to make them sound different or do different things. And so what we're going to do is use it. It's got different settings on it, like foxtrot, different rhythm settings. And so we're going to use those as platforms to jump off in and do our improvisations off of that. So those are things that we can do because it's there, and we should try different things. And I think with the same thing with singer songwriters. Okay, one of the big things that I did, writing lyrics and trying to figure all that stuff out, is I read a lot. I went to the library. I read sonnets. I read Robert Frost. I read T.S. Eliot, Lucille Clifton. You name it. The poets. The real ones. And so those are just as that's just as important for your education or your inspiration as you know. Okay, I know this works for me. Like, that's great. But we should always be looking. We should always be self-editing
yes.
ourselves
What
and
else is out there?
honest be honest with ourselves sometimes too. Sometimes you're like, oh, you know what? I kind of phoned it in on that song. I need to dig a little deeper. I need to start over. And I have that at home. I have a lot of honest feedback. The other day I was working on a song, and I was writing the lyrics for it, and I showed it to my wife, and she's like, that's all right. You know, and if your wife says, it's all right, maybe you should start over. And so that's something that's very important to me, is honest feedback. And I've been very fortunate in my life to have that from my bandmates and people around me, so that's very important.
Yeah, yeah. I listened to one of your songs today, lo-fi. I don't really that's normally not a genre I listen to, but I enjoyed
Sure.
it.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah,
I did.
that was a lot of fun. And that actually, the basis of that is samples. Um,
Mm,
and I do play guitar on it, but you can't really tell it's guitar. And so there's like 2 or 3 guitars on that, and my wife is singing on that. And yeah, it's fun. But the drum beat, that's a sample. There's a couple of different other samples on there, and we just recorded that at home. That was a home recording. So it's like, that's the thing, is like, some, we can't all afford, like, the whatever, the is going to a studio and plunking down quite a bit of money to do that. So sometimes you need to take, even if you learn some, like, cursory recording techniques, you can make some really cool stuff. And I highly recommend that to anyone that's either starting out, or or even if you're just like, you know what, I can't afford to go into a studio, which a lot of musicians can't, you know, okay, well, figure out what you have at home. What do you have? There's this great quote from there's this movie director. His name is Robert Rodriguez, and he made some pretty big movies. And he's, his first movie though, he made it for like, I don't know, it was like $3,500 or something like that, something crazy. He said, "Well, I took stock in what I had." He goes, "I had a guitar, I had a turtle, I had a microphone, and I had a camera." And he made and he made his first movie with all those elements. And I'm sure there's a few other things that he did too, but it was called El Mariachi, which is a pretty cool movie. And 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 that's the thing is like, okay, what do you have? Well, I have a guitar, I have a phone, I can borrow my buddy's microphone, or I can borrow, I can go over to my other buddy. He's got a Focusrite or whatever, like, take stock in your community, find out who the guys are, and go for it, and you'll find, maybe those guys will end up being on your team, to propel you forward, and that's the biggest thing, I think.
Oh, this has been amazing. So, so honestly, so first of all, let me just summarize what I've heard.
Sure, sure.
You've spoken, I've heard. So I love that you said I just had the right mindset, and I can do mentality. When people say you can't, I'm like, watch me.
Yeah,
I can do it.
yeah.
I always say success, any sort of success starts with the right mindset.
Mhm.
It's
For sure.
being willing to just open your mind and stretch the possibility of your thinking and just be willing
Yeah.
to go for it.
Yeah.
Not to,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, to be restricted by your circumstances.
Mm.
I really loved that. The right mindset. Number two, you were willing to stretch yourself. What can you do differently? Um, you went for it.
Yeah,
Try new ways of doing things and got feedback. And
for
you weren't
sure.
questions about it as well. I
Yeah,
love that. I love that. Like, this isn't good enough, obviously, from that that
yeah,
response. I'm gonna start again. That's
yeah.
just great. Um,
Well, yeah, for sure.
not feeling like because you have this limitation, everyone then has to be nice to you. No, you can take it. You can take someone saying,
Yeah,
I think that needs more work. And
yeah,
that's great. I think that's the right attitude everyone should have, because that's a recipe for greatness. That's a recipe for success.
yeah.
If people keep patting you on the back because they don't want to offend you, you're not going to go anywhere, because
Oh,
yeah.
it's there's this other quote that I remember. There was a a guy. He was I forget the director's name, but he was doing a documentary on Prince, and Prince was recording this song. He was playing all the. I mean, Prince is a genius. He can play all the instruments. He can, sing. He can, he's a showman. He was all that. But the song wasn't that great, and you could say that, some people would argue that maybe his latter output wasn't that great. But the problem was is he didn't have people around him that were honest with him.
Mm,
And Prince was in Prince land, and
mm,
Prince had been in Prince land for quite some time, and so I never want to be in that mindset. I don't ever want to be a place where I make something and everybody's just like, that is the best thing since sliced bread. You are a genius. I don't want that, because that means I've lost the plot. That's where you can't grow, and
mm.
you can't innovate your sound or your thing any further.
Yeah.
And that's scary. That's a scary for me. That's a very, and especially as for someone that, I didn't go the traditional path as a musician. And so to me, that means there's a lot of things I don't know. There's things I know, but there's a lot I don't, because I didn't take the traditional path, and there's like bad habits that I have that I don't know I have because, you know, I didn't grow up learning the right way of doing things. And so with that, I know in the back of my head, okay, you need to be able to take criticism, and that's very important.
Absolutely. And that's how you learn as well.
Mhm.
And you're not letting that stop you. You're going for it.
Oh
You
yeah.
I love what you said about taking stock of what you have. What do you have?
Yeah.
Okay, you may not have the use of your two hands anymore. You may not even have the use of your mouth muscles and your ability to sing as you're able to before, but that didn't
Right.
stop you from making music. You
Right.
just made it another way.
Yeah. Well, and
um,
that's the thing too, is you know my hands did get stronger, and so now I am able to play guitar now. And so that's the thing though, is there was a good 3 or 4 year period where my wife had to be honest with me and say, You don't sound good. Your guitar playing isn't shouldn't be in public." And that's
mm,
the kind of thing you want to have around you, is people that are going to be honest, because she saved me a lot of embarrassment, because I would have tried, because that's where my ego was, and so that's a dangerous place to be too, is when you think you have it and you don't, or you're so self-delusional that you put yourself in a bad situation, and you need to humble yourself. I think that's a big thing, is being humble enough to understand the situation that you're in.
mm,
And that was something that I had to learn. It was hard. I mean, it was like a death, it was like, oh shoot, this could be over. This could be, and thank God he gave it back, because, and that's where your faith comes in. That's where you're like, okay, God, this is your situation. You're under control. I can't control this situation.
mm,
And that was very important to me too, is when he did give it back. There was some hard work. That's the thing too. I think a lot of Christians have that mindset of, well, he's going to give it back, so I just have to sit and wait. Well, maybe not. Maybe you need to go to PT. Maybe you need to work on your craft, and just as important, I think, as waiting on God. Because yeah, He will give it back, but maybe you have to do some work too.
yeah,
And that's a very important thing too, as well.
absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. Um, so you just kept going. You didn't lose hope. You
No.
kept going to PT. You kept practicing your guitar,
Hmm.
even when you weren't good enough to play yet in public. You kept practicing,
Hmm.
and the time came that you were able to play again in public, which is great.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that you remember um, that helped with the process of getting back to being able to play again?
Um, the the big thing is this is the thing that I've always wanted to do. You know, Music has always saved me. You know, music has always been there for me, and I always think of it as God's gift to me, that He was able to whatever hard thing that was ever in my life, I've been able to rely on music to soothe me, to focus me, and all that kind of thing. And I was listening to a lot. There was this Estonian composer that I was listening to, called, his name is Avro Part, and he bases a lot of his compositions on Gregorian chants. And so during my healing process, I was listening to a lot of his music. There's one of his more famous compositions called Ferlina, and it's just beautiful, spacious composition on piano. The very sparse notes, and for me, it was almost like I was dissecting it in my mind, and I was like, okay, if for whatever reason I can't, play a lot of notes and a lot of things, be very, because I was a very I am still somewhat, but not as much as I was, but I was a very physical
Mm.
um, guitar player. I play a lot of rhythmic parts and a lot of polyrhythms, a lot of different, you know, very physical um, way of playing. And so now I have to sit down when I play because I can't because a guitar strap will pinch my shoulder and I won't be able and my hand will go numb. And
Mm.
so those are considerations. I had to change a lot of the ways that I did, I approached the instrument. And so by listening to these compositions by this composer, I was able to be like, okay, you can still be emotive and not play a lot. Like
Mm.
and so I started using a lot more modulation with guitar pedals and reverb, and so I was like basing my sound on uh, different techniques to to minimize the physicalness, but also maximize the emotional content of the music. And so those were things that I had to change about my playing, about the way, I still do some, like I pick my spots. That's kind of how I do it now is okay, this spot needs some like really frenetic, rhythmic embellishments or whatever you want to call it. And so, there's times when I will do it, but for the most part, my job nowadays is to support, the person I'm playing with. And my bandmate, her name is Melissa Davies, and she plays cello, and so she's kind of like the lead singer in our band, like,
The one who I saw in the
very
video.
yeah, it's very melodic and it's very beautiful. And so
Mm.
my job is to kind of lay down the bass, um, atmosphere part of it, and then she plays over the top and that kind of thing. And so that really helps, bring the music forward, and it saves me physically, because then I'm able to play a whole show without wearing out or without my hands going numb. I mean, there are times when there'll be moments where my hand won't do what my brain is telling it to, um, and there are elements of that still, but it's a lot fewer and farther between than it used to be.
Wow. This has been so good, Andrew. So good. I've just really loved this conversation. And I hope everyone that's listening has grabbed bits and pieces here and there that you can use for yourself, because I may not be struggling, with my health in that way, but there's already so much that I can apply. Um, so you wrote a book about
Yeah,
it. Do you want to
yeah,
tell us about the book?
sure, yeah. So during this whole process, I was, again, I was looking for another creative outlet, and so my book is entitled C6C7. It's a haiku book. And so the main thing with that was, okay, I can write lyrics, and that was important to me. But a lot of times with lyrics and stuff like that, it's a lot of free verse. It's a lot of you know, it's a little more free form, and so I wanted to be very disciplined, and I wanted to explore something that would hem me in a little bit. I think, as musicians, sometimes it's the adversity that makes the great art. And so that was the thing that I was trying to do, was get all this stuff out that that was inside of me from all this situation, all the emotions, all the the blessings, the peace, but also the anger and the frustration and all that kind of stuff, because I believe that as a full faceted person, we all have, things that we need to get out. And I think music and lyric writing and all that kind of stuff is therapy, I think, a lot of times, and it has been for me. And so the book was something that I was able to put all my emotions into, and all my uh, all the things that was happening to me, and understand it a little bit better. by writing it. And so yeah, and it got picked up by Atmosphere Press, which is pretty cool. And yeah, it just launched on October 3rd. So you can check it out. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, and all the places that you can get books, and it's also on Kindle and all that kind of stuff too as well. It's an ebook as well. So that's a big thing, because it's always been like a secret ambition of mine. It was to write a poetry book, and that was another thing too. I took poetry classes in college, and so I wasn't sure if I was good enough, but I just kept working at it and working at it, and so I finally got brave enough to actually submit something, and it worked out, and so that was kind of a cool thing, and I feel really blessed and stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of hours of writing and reading and studying and that kind of stuff, that brought me to this point for sure.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. So, guys, the link is going to be in the description. Okay. So, check it out. I'm looking forward to having a look at it because I remember having a discussion around haiku ages ago. I don't
Yes, yeah.
remember what it's all about because I am not like into poetry, but
Oh,
I do
sure.
remember that there was a certain formula you had to follow. So,
Yes. So typically, it's a Japanese form of poetry. Typically, it's a the it's based on syllables. So the typical form is five word, like a five syllable. There's three lines, and so the first line is five syllables. The
okay.
second line is seven syllables, and then
Okay.
the third line is five syllables. But the thing that I tried to do is I was like, I want to get more information out. So I changed the format. I changed it to a 757 format so that I could get more information out. Uh, you know, and kind of put my own little spin on it anyway. So
Yeah, absolutely. Just creativity that
yeah,
is not stopping because of life's inhibitions and life happening.
right.
You still went for it. I love it. You still went for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And just thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's a beautiful story. I think it's inspirational. And oh yeah, I see the dog behind.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's my dog Piper. Yeah. She's always
So
looking for something. She's a
thank you so much.
troublemaker.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, Andrew. Really, really great conversation. So I'm going to end it here now. Any last words for us today?
Well, I would just say, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and I would just say that follow your passion. If it's to write, write. If it's to play music, play music. If it's to read, if it's to whatever it is that you have in your heart that God's given you to do it to the best of your ability, because you don't know how you're going to help other people. And I think that's the main thing with all the art that we do. I think that we need to help people with it. And I think that's the biggest important part of it. It helps us creating it, but it also, I think, it helps other people, when we put it out into the world. And I also think that they're all different. You don't have to be an artist to help people, but I think that if we can all work together, I think we can make this place a better place.
Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much, everyone, again for listening to the episode. I'm going to sign off now. See you next time on another episode of the Fulfilled Music Preneur podcast. Bye for now.